Day 10, Phase 1 closes today. Welcome back. My name is Dr. Rivka Edery. I'm the author of Spatial Psy. And for today, we're going to have a longer session, and it is a different kind of session. I'm not going to teach you anything new today. There's no fourth signal, and there's no new drill. Today, we stop moving forward and we take stock, and we're going to do it properly. Not with encouragement, which is cheap and which you have no reason to accept from me, but with evidence which you already own. So before we go any further, go get your log, all 10 records, put them in front of you, because there's something I've been waiting 10 days to let you do, and today is the day. Since day 1, the rule has been, complete each session without reviewing previous records. Let each day stand on its own. You've been working blind, one page at a time, with no idea whether anything was accumulating. That rule ends today. Today, for the first time, you open the whole log at once. And let me be precise about what is changing, because the rule that ends today was not arbitrary, and I do not want you to think it was. For 10 days, complete each session without reviewing previous records. Let each day stand on its own. Why? Because if you had been reading back over your old maps each night, you would have not been recording 10 independent sessions. You would have been recording one session repeated 10 times, with each entry quietly shaped by the ones before it. You would have started seeing your own patterns and then producing them. And the whole inventory would have been worthless. Not because you were dishonest, but because contamination does not require dishonesty. It only requires memory. You could not corrupt yesterday's record because you couldn't see it. That is what the rule bought you. 10 genuinely independent data points. Now, hear the precise shape of what is permitted today, because it matters. The rule governs sessions. Do not review previous records while working a session. That rule is still in force, and it stays in force. Today's review is not a session. It happens after today's record is closed. You do your day 10 log first, 5 steps, all 3 signals in order, exactly as always, and you close it. And then, only then, you open the whole book. That distinction is the entire reason the seal can lift safely today without spoiling anything. The record goes down clean, and then you read. So, log first, review second, never the other way around. Here's the test. It takes 2 minutes, and it is the most important thing you'll do today. Find your day 1 geometry sentence. Read it. Now find your day 9 geometry sentence. Read that. Don't read them for quality. Do not ask which one is better written or which one sounds more insightful. That is a question about your prose, and it is not what we are measuring. Read them for what they contain, and then count. I want you to count in each sentence how many distinct pieces of spatial information are present. A gap with a size, a cluster with a location, a tightness, an edge note, a void with a form. Each one of those is one unit of information. Count them. Day 1, how many? Be honest. For most people, the answer is 1 or 0. Something like, the cards are spread out. That is not a failure. That is what a person sees before they have been trained. And on day 1, you've been trained for approximately 11 minutes. Day 9, count again. I'm not going to tell you what number you'll find because I do not know. And because a number I supplied would be worthless to you. But whatever it is a measurement, not a memory. It is not me telling you that you have improved, and it is not you feeling as though you have. It is a count of information units on 2 pieces of paper, both of which you wrote 10 days apart, without ever seeing the first one while writing the second. That is evidence. It is the only kind I'm willing to offer you. And it is the only kind you should accept. Let me name what that count is actually measuring, because it is not the obvious thing. It's not measuring effort. You have not been trying harder each day. It's not measuring belief. You are, I hope, no more convinced than you were. And if you are, I would want to know what convinced you and whether it was evidence. It is measuring resolution, the number of distinct things you can see when you look at the same object. On day one, you looked at a layout, and your eye reported a vague impression of the whole, that cards are spread out, one unit of information or none. That is the resolution of an untrained eye. And I want to say clearly that it is not a stupid eye or a bad one. It's a normal one. It is what everyone has. On day 9, you looked at a layout. The same kind of layout, the same deck, the same table, the same person, and you produce distance from the center, distance from each other, distance from the edges. A cluster with a zone, a tightness, a membership, a void with a location, a proportion, and a form. Same table, same cards, same hands. The field did not become more informative over 10 days. The field was always carrying all of that. Every layout you have ever placed in your life was carrying all of that. You just could not see it. And now you can. That is what has changed. And it is the only thing that has changed. And it is quite a lot. Let me inventory it plainly. 5 capacities. 10 days ago, you had none of them. 1, you can measure a gap from the center, from each other, from the edges. 3 reference points, where most readers use 1 and most use it badly. 2, you can hear a claim. You know that density asserts something, and you can record what it asserts. Its zone, its tightness, its membership, and you know not to adjudicate it yet. 3, you can see an absence. This is the rarest of the 5. The void has a form, a proportion, a location, and you know that your eye will not deliver it, so you go and get it deliberately. 4, you can freeze a map. You record the geometry before you know the outcome, and you do not go back and improve it afterward. That is a discipline that most people cannot sustain in any domain of their life, and you have sustained it for 10 days. 5, you can log a nothing. The uneventful session gets a complete entry. You do not skip it. You do not pad it. And you do not invent a signal to make the page feel worth the trouble. Now, look at that list again and notice something about it. Not one of those 5 is a belief. Not one of them requires you to have decided that any of this is real. Every single one is a discipline, a thing you do or refrain from doing that can be verified from the outside by anyone reading your notebook. That is the whole of phase 1. You have not been asked to become a believer. You have been asked to become a reliable instrument, and you have made real progress toward it. Now, let me be equally precise about what you do not have, because a milestone that only lists gains is a sales pitch, and you would be right to distrust it. You do not have meaning. You cannot yet say what a cluster near your body means. You do not know whether your voids favor a zone. You cannot look at a layout and tell me what it is about. And if you can, you're doing something I have not taught you, and I would want you to look very carefully at where that certainty came from. And you do not have proof. 10 records is an inventory, it's not a verdict. Nothing in that notebook has been tested against anything. You have 10 honest, independent descriptions of 10 arrangements, and not one of them has yet been checked against a single fact about the world. I want you to sit with that for a moment because it is genuinely uncomfortable and I'm not going to soften it. 10 days of disciplined work and you cannot yet demonstrate that any of it tracks anything. That is exactly where you're supposed to be. Because here is what you do have, and it is the thing that makes the next 20 days possible. You have 10 records you can trust. 10 pages that were written before the outcome was known, frozen before they could be adjusted, and phrased in structural terms that cannot be quietly reinterpreted later. That is a corpus. It is the raw material, and you cannot test anything without it. You spent 10 days building the only thing that could ever settle the question you asked on day 8. And you built it without knowing whether the answer would be one you liked. That is the hardest thing in this entire method, and it is behind you.